Hi, I'm Carol Jorgensen Sheets, aka Carol the Coach, and this is some sex help with Carol the Coach. You know, you may be asking yourself whether you're making too big of a deal out of this. You don't know if what you're going through constitutes sexual deviation, sexual problems, or sexual addiction. So, we're going to go over the 10 criteria that actually constitutes sexual addiction. And you can always go to my website, Sex Help with Carol the Coach, and take a very basic beginner's test that'll give you some idea as to whether you need help or not. Now, first of all, if you're prone to sexual addiction, you will feel a loss of control. There will be clear behavior in which you do more than intend or want. And you're asking yourself, why did I do that? What's going on? What am I doing this for? It gets very convoluted. It gets very difficult to understand. And so when there's a loss of control, it can feel very scary. And I get that. And that's why I'm here to help. Because sexual addiction is not something that you should try to figure out all by yourself. You need a certified sexual addictions therapist. And that is a person who's specialized in and has gotten training to help you work on this issue. Unfortunately, many counselors don't know what to do. You have to determine, is your behavior compulsive? That is the second criteria for sexual addiction. Is your behavior out of control, and has it gotten worse over time? When people have compulsive behavior, not only can they not stop, but it tends to ruminate, and it becomes the focus of everything you do. And when you're not participating in sexual addiction, then you're very much thinking about it, wondering when the next opportunity will occur. It's the driver behind your behaviors. If you feel like that sounds like you, then I can tell you that you have compulsive behavior. And when I run teen groups on kids that manifest a lot of sexually addictive behavior, I don't call it sexual addiction because truly they have not had the history that establishes sexual addiction, but we do call it sexually compulsive behavior because they can't wait to get home from school and get on their iPads and look at websites and get involved in chat rooms and go to different places that spark the reward center. And that's what sexual addiction is all about. It is a neurochemical problem in the brain. Now, the third criteria is, have you tried to stop? Have there been multiple efforts to stop your behavior? You have repeatedly said, this is the last time. I am no longer going to participate in this behavior. Or you bargain with yourself, I'm just going to do it one more time and then I'm going to quit. And if you've said that about sex, whether it's voyeurism, exhibitionism, pornography, prostitution, frauderism, exploitation, no matter what the driver behind the sexual compulsion, if you've said, I'm going to stop, and you're not able to, you've got a sexual addiction. Is there loss of time? One of the things we know is that sexual addiction puts you in what we call an altered state. And that means that there is time distortion. Significant amounts of time are lost that you can never recover. 20 minutes turns into an hour, turns into 2 hours, turns into 6 hours, turns into staying up all night looking at websites and at pornography. or you're just going to run down to the corner to buy a magazine and you end up stopping and experimenting with a prostitute and coming back. And it's been a 2.5-hour process because you sat in your car for a while. You waited. You wondered if you should do it. You sat and thought about it. You participated in the act. You got back in the car. You had that cycle of self-loathing. You thought, what the hell am I doing? And then you drive around for a while because you don't even want to go back home. I get that. The men and the women that I work with have experienced that. They've said that. There's that loss of time or time distortion. Now, we talked about this a little bit, but another criteria, the 5th criteria, is preoccupation. Do you obsess about behaviors? Do you think of ways that you can create opportunities to act out? Is it taking you away from your family time, time with the kids, time from work? If you've done any research, you know that most people act out between 9 and 5 in the day. We have this preconceived notion that people are acting out when other people are going to sleep and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they do that. But more pornography is looked at between the hours of 9 and 5 Eastern Standard Time than any other time. And that preoccupation is the driver, is the catalyst for going to work, knowing that you have a full day, knowing that you have responsibilities and duties, and getting off track and not coming back. Getting off track and spending hours and hours and hours. And realizing that you didn't do a darn thing all day because you were preoccupied. That can be very, very difficult. So, the 6th criteria is that there is an inability to fulfill obligations. You realize that. You're not cleaning out your car. Instead, you're using that to look at porn because the wife's gone to the grocery store. You're not getting your work done. You're a policeman and you're sitting in the car and you're looking at your laptop as opposed to surveilling a dangerous situation. You're a teacher and instead of grading those papers, you're looking up websites. You sneak out in the middle of the night to have an interlude and you come back exhausted. And so you're no good the next day. You and I both know that when there's an inability to fulfill obligations and that your behavior interferes with work and school and family and friends. Unfortunately, one of the toughest criteria to watch people go through is when the behavior is escalated enough that there's continuation despite consequences. You've spent your entire bank account on rendezvous and gifts and trips and prostitution and pornography. Or you've gotten in trouble and you've spent your life savings on legal bills and getting yourself out of jail and extortionists, paying people off to stay out of trouble. Failure to stop the behavior that result in consequences that interfere with and affect social, legal, financial, and physical issues. Those are the consequences that occur from this illness. They're devastating, and they get worse, and they get worse, and they get worse. And so that next criteria is escalation. Sexual addiction does not start here and stay here. Sexual addiction gets worse and worse and worse. And you end up doing things you never would have thought you would have ever done before. I want you to know that. You're not a bad person because it's escalated, but it is absolutely a time when you need significant help. Again, from a CSAT, if a CSAT can't help you, if 12-step meetings can't help you, if Recovery Nation can't help you, maybe it's an intensive outpatient program. Maybe it's an intensive weekend. Maybe it's a hospitalization, a residential treatment center. You see, there's this need to make behavior more intense, more frequent, and more risky. And when that occurs, you never go back. Oh, sure, you can stop for a week, a month, 3 months. And you fool yourself and you go, phew, I am so glad that I proved to myself I could control it. And then all of a sudden it jumps way over here. Because when you begin again, you don't just start here where you quit, you bump up. So that escalation really exaggerates the intensity, frequency, and devastation of the problems. And then, of course, another predictor of criteria is that there are losses. There are losses everywhere. You know, losing, limiting, or sacrificing valued parts of life, such as your hobbies, your family, your relationships, and your work. You know, I've had men that have lost their jobs, they've gone to jail, they get out, and they can't stop the sexually addictive behavior. And they've experienced the consequences, but they haven't gotten treatment, so they can't stop. But I'm here to tell you that if you work the work, if you do the work, it works. Now, although it's not necessarily like drug and alcohol withdrawal, there is withdrawal from sexual addiction. Stopping the behavior can cause considerable distress, anxiety, restlessness, irritability, and physical discomfort. And that is consequences that are physical, that keep you from sleeping, that create weight loss or create weight gain. You know, create undue anxiety that makes you difficult to be around, that makes you snap at your wife or husband and the kids, you know, that keeps you restless. Withdrawal is a part of sexual addiction. Last but not least, there's oftentimes multiple addictions. What we know to be true is somebody who has sexual addiction is typically a gambler, or they're a workaholic, or they have an eating disorder, or they drink too much, they smoke, they drink too much caffeine, they use drugs. There's almost always a multiple addiction. So that is the criteria for sexual addiction. And I want you to really ask yourself, how many of those criteria do you meet? Look at this tape again, listen to the tape, and I want you to check them off. I want you to get out of denial. You know, this information was given to me by Patrick Carnes. I'm a CSAT, he trained me. It comes directly out of this book, Facing the Shadows, which is a workbook. And it's the partner book to Out of the Shadows. And it's really what I consider to be one of the best books around. If you want more information, order this book from Amazon, from Gentle Path, from Barnes & Noble, and go through the workbook. But I always say, don't do it alone. If you can find a CSAT in your area, get some help and make this work count for you. So you can go to sexhelp.com, put in your zip code, Put in your state, put in your country, and see where there's a CSAT for you. You can come back to this site. You know, I'm going to have YouTube videos. I'm going to be adding 3 a week. And you can always listen to my show, Sex Help with Carol the Coach, on Blog Talk Radio. The actual link is blogtalkradio.com/Sex Help with Carol the Coach. So until we meet again, I want to give you hope, strength, and recovery. Together we can get this thing worked out. Thanks for being here with me today, and we will catch you real soon.